Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you found your way here to a quiet corner of the night. Let's take a moment together to just let go. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your breath. There's nothing to do now, nowhere to be. Just allow your mind to grow soft and open like the evening sky. Tonight, we are going to travel far back in time to a world of steaming rainforests, of wide, slow-moving rivers, to the very cradle of civilization in the Americas. We are going to wander into the lost world of the Olmecs. We will watch the morning mist rise over their sacred centers, hear the quiet sound of a craftsman polishing jade, and feel the deep, mysterious peace of a people who lived in harmony with the earth, and whose memory now sleeps beneath the jungle. This is a story of quiet discovery, of gentle hands shaping stone, of a culture that bloomed in silence and left behind whispers in the stone. There are no loud battles here, no dramatic events, only the slow green growth of the forest and the patient work of artists. So just let my words drift over you, painting soft pictures in the quiet theater of your mind. And as you listen, you can allow yourself to relax deeper and deeper into a peaceful, restful sleep. Let's begin our journey into the mist and the green. The land of rubber. Our story begins not with a person, but with a place. A land of immense green. Imagine a vast lowland rainforest, stretching for miles and miles under a heavy, humid sky. This is the southern Gulf Coast of Mexico, the heartland of the Olmec. The air here is warm and thick and smells of damp earth, of decaying leaves, of life constantly growing and returning to the soil. Great rivers move through this green world, not rushing but meandering, taking their time to reach the sea. Their banks are rich with clay, dark and fertile. And in this rainforest grows a remarkable tree, the rubber tree. The Olmecs were the people of rubber. They harvested the white, milky latex and learned to shape it, a discovery that would define them. The name we give them, Olmec, comes much later from the Aztecs, and it means the rubber people, but they would have called themselves something else, something lost to time now. They were simply the people of this lush, green, and generous land. In clearings along the riverbanks, the first villages emerged. They were not grand cities of stone, but communities of thatch and wood, materials that would eventually return to the earth, leaving only the faintest traces for archaeologists to find. The houses were simple structures, built on low earthen platforms to keep them dry during the seasonal floods. Their walls were made of woven saplings, plastered with mud, and their roofs were thatched with the leaves of the palm tree, a perfect roof for the rain. The sound of a village waking up was a gentle one, the soft chatter of women beginning to prepare the morning meal, the sound of a stone axe chopping wood, the laughter of children, the distant sound of a dugout canoe being pushed into the river. The dogs that lived with them would wander through the clearing, waiting for a scrap. It was a life deeply connected to the water and the forest, a life of community, where everyone had a role to play, and the rhythm of the day was set by the sun and the rain, the true foundation of Olmec life, as it would be for all the civilizations that followed in the Americas, was maize, corn. But this was not the tall, uniform corn we know today. It was a smaller, hardier plant, a gift from the gods that had been carefully domesticated over millennia. The clearing of land for a maize field was a slow process, using stone axes to fell trees and burn the undergrowth. The planting was done with a simple digging stick. A pointed piece of wood hardened in the fire. A hole was made. A few seeds were dropped in and covered over. There was a deep knowledge of the seasons, of the rains, of the sun. They grew other things too. Squash, with its broad leaves helping to keep the soil moist, and beans which would climb the corn stalks. This was the Three Sisters, the sacred trio of plants that supported life. The sight of a field of green corn stretching towards the sun was a sight of hope and security, the promise of food and life itself. The Olmecs were masterful artists, and their most common canvas was the earth itself, in the form of clay. The riverbanks provided an endless supply of this perfect, pliable material. They would gather it, clean it, mix it with water and sand, and begin to shape it. Their hands knew how to form beautiful, simple bowls and jars for storing grain and water. But they also made figurines, tiny human forms, often of women holding children, or figures with gentle, smiling faces. These were not toys, but likely objects of devotion, meant for household shrines. They made hollow baby figures with pudgy, realistic limbs that might gurgle when tipped like a rattle. The act of coiling clay, of smoothing it, of pinching it into shape was a quiet, meditative act, a way of making the earth itself hold a thought or a prayer. And then the clay would be fired in an open pit, transforming the soft mud into something hard and permanent, a piece of everyday life, preserved for thousands of years. The rivers were not just for water, they were the highways of the Olmec world. The dugout canoe, carved and burned from a single massive log, was their truck, their bus, their connection to other villages. Traveling by river was far easier than trying to move through the dense, tangled rainforest. In a canoe one could glide silently, watching the forest go by, herons standing still in the shallow water, monkeys calling from the canopy. The canoe could carry people, it could carry trade goods, it could carry ideas. The sound of a paddle dipping into the water and pulling back is a quiet, rhythmic sound, a soothing sound of gentle movement and purpose. The river connected everyone. It was a flowing network of community, a silent, moving thread weaving through the green world. In the heart of their territory, the Olmecs began to shape the land itself. At a place we now call San Lorenzo, they transformed a vast natural plateau into a sacred landscape. They moved earth, not with machines, but with countless baskets carried on countless backs, to create great flat-topped platforms and long parallel ridges. This was not a city of people living crowded together. It was a ceremonial center, a place of gathering, of power, of ceremony. The scale of it was immense, but the work was slow and patient, taking generations. It was an act of collective will, a shared project that defined a community. And at the heart of this engineered landscape, they placed their most awe-inspiring creations, the colossal heads. But that is a story for later. For now, just imagine the quiet purpose, the steady rhythm of work, the sense of creating something lasting, something magnificent. From the very earth they walked on, and so the world of the Olmecs continued. For century upon century, a long, slow bloom of culture in the green heart of the rainforest. Their great centers, San Lorenzo, La Venta, eventually grew quiet. The people moved on, the jungle crept back in, vines climbed over the colossal heads, and the earthwork slowly softened under the endless rain. The memory of the rubber people, the jade carvers, the earth movers, faded into legend, and then into silence. But the peace they cultivated, the deep, creative connection to the earth and the stone, that feeling remains. It is a timeless peace, found in the patient shaping of something beautiful, in the quiet of the forest, in the mist that rises from the river each morning. And you can find that peace now. As you lie here, safe and warm, you can let the images of the green world fade. Let the stories of the stone faces melt away, and just hold on to that feeling of quiet and stillness. The gentle rain on the leaves, the silent gaze of history, the deep, slow rhythm of a culture that rose and rested and returned to the earth. The weight of stone. To understand the Olmecs, we must understand their relationship with stone. In a land of soft earth and flowing rivers, they sought out the hardest, most enduring materials. They found basalt, a volcanic rock heavy and grey, and they found serpentine and jadeite, stones of beautiful deep green. But these stones were not found in their riverine homeland. They had to travel for them, far into the mountains. A journey of great effort and purpose. The basalt for the great colossal heads came from the Tuxtla Mountains, a journey of over 50 miles. Imagine the effort to quarry a multi-ton block of stone using only harder stone tools and fire, to then transport it without the wheel, without pack animals, likely on great rolling log sledges, down mountains, through swamps, and along rivers on massive rafts. It was a task that required the coordination of entire communities, a slow, relentless, patient procession. The sound of this work would have been the groaning of wood, the calls of men coordinating their efforts, the immense, quiet presence of the stone itself, moving imperceptibly slowly towards its destiny. It was an act of profound belief, a testament to what a community working together in quiet purpose could achieve. And what was the destiny of that stone? It was to be transformed. The Olmec sculptors, using only tools of stone and sand and endless patience, would begin to shape the great basalt boulders. They would peck away the surface, then grind it smooth with sand and water, polishing it for countless hours, and slowly, from the unyielding rock, a face would emerge. These were the colossal heads, each one unique, each one a portrait of a powerful ruler. They have full, broad features, strong jaws, and eyes that gaze forth with a calm, imposing presence. They often wear a tight helmet, perhaps a symbol of the ballgame. They are not angry or fearsome, but serene and watchful. To stand before one is to feel the weight of their gaze, a gaze that has seen centuries pass. They were guardians of the ceremonial centers, silent watchers, reminding the people of the authority and the history that watched over them. Their expression is one of eternal peace and eternal patience. If basalt was for the public, for the community, then jade was for the personal, for the spiritual. Jade was the most precious substance in the Olmec world, more valuable than gold. Its color was the color of water, of leaves, of life itself. It was cool to the touch and incredibly hard to work. To shape jade required even more patience than basalt, using a saw of string and sand and water to slowly abrade the stone. They carved jade into beautiful, intricate objects, polished celts that were symbols of authority. But most importantly, they carved tiny, intricate figurines, and they made beautiful concave mirrors from polished magnetite, which could start fires or be used in ceremonies. To hold a piece of polished Olmec jade is to hold a piece of concentrated patience and devotion. The smooth, cool surface, the deep, translucent green, it feels alive in the hand. It was a connection to the heart of the earth and to the watery, green world they cherished. A common theme appears in Olmec art, a being that is both human and jaguar. It has the body of a human infant, but the snarling mouth, the slanted eyes, and sometimes the claws of a jaguar. Scholars call this the Were-Jaguar. It was likely a powerful supernatural concept, a merging of the most powerful predator of the rainforest with the most sacred form of humanity, the child. This being appears everywhere, in large sculptures, and in the tiny jade figurines that someone might have worn around their neck for protection. The jaguar was respected and feared, a creature of the night and the deep forest. To combine its power with the innocence of a child speaks of a deep and complex worldview, one that saw the divine in the natural world all around them. It was not a thing of terror, but of power, a protective, perhaps ancestral spirit, a guardian of the threshold between the human world and the wild. Another innovation that would echo through the centuries was the ballgame. The Olmecs built the first known courts for this ritual sport. A long, narrow alley between two sloping walls. The game was played with a solid rubber ball, heavy enough to be dangerous, and players could not use their hands or feet, only their hips, their thighs, and perhaps wooden paddles to keep the ball in motion. The thump of the heavy rubber ball against a hip, the sound of it bouncing off the plastered court walls, would have been a familiar sound in the ceremonial centers. It was more than a sport. It was a ritual, a reenactment of a cosmic battle, perhaps between the sun and the moon, or between life and death. The movement of the players, the arc of the ball, was a dance, a physical prayer. The rhythm of the game, the focused energy, was another thread in the fabric of their spiritual life. In the quiet of the night, a different kind of work began. The spiritual leaders of the Olmecs, the Shamans, would prepare for their journeys. These were not journeys of distance, but of the mind, voyages into the spirit world to seek guidance, to heal, to understand the will of the gods. They might use natural substances to alter their consciousness, to open a doorway to the unseen. In this state, they believed they could transform. They could become one with the jaguar, feeling its power, its grace, its connection to the night. They could speak with ancestors or with the spirits of the Maize or the river. When they returned, they would bring back wisdom for the community. Their role was to interpret the world, to balance the seen and the unseen. Their work was done in quiet, in solitude, a deep personal service to their people. It was a role that required immense inner strength and a profound peace, the peace of one who has navigated the depths and returned whole. The Olmecs communicated with their world through offerings, not grand public sacrifices, but quiet personal acts of devotion. They would take precious things, a beautifully carved jade celts, a perfect pottery vessel, a figurine, and they would bury them. They placed them in deep pits dug into the earth, or laid them in a stream, returning them to the landscape from which they came. It was a gift, an act of reciprocity, a thanks for the water, for the rain, for the maize that grew. It was a way of putting something beautiful and full of human effort back into the earth, a seed of culture planted for the spirits. Archaeologists find these offerings, these hidden treasures, perfectly preserved, waiting silently for thousands of years. They are messages in stone and clay, messages of thanks, and of reverence for a world that provided everything. The act of giving without expectation is a deeply peaceful act, a release, a letting go, that creates a sense of harmony and balance. Music filled the air during festivals and ceremonies. The Olmecs made beautiful instruments, and their sound was likely as complex and sophisticated as their sculpture. They made ceramic flutes with finger holes that could play a simple, haunting melody. The sound of an Olmec flute is soft and breathy and slightly melancholic, a sound that seems to drift through the trees. They made percussion instruments too, tortoise shells struck with an antler, or hollow logs drummed with the palms of the hands. The rhythm would be steady and deep, a heartbeat for the ceremony. They made rattles from clay, filled with little clay pellets that would make a soft, shuffling sound like rain. This music was not for entertainment. It was a bridge, a way to call the spirits, to unite the community in a shared rhythm, to elevate the ordinary into the sacred. The sound of that ancient flute, carried on the humid air, is a sound that speaks of beauty and longing and a deep connection to the unseen. On certain days, a quiet clearing by the river would transform into a place of gentle commerce. This was the market, not a noisy, crowded bazaar, but a place of orderly exchange. People from nearby villages would arrive by canoe, bringing their surplus. There would be baskets of fresh fish, bundles of ripe avocados, pots of honey, beautifully woven mats, and perhaps small polished jade ornaments. There was no money. Trade was done through barter, a direct and personal exchange of goods for goods. It was also an exchange of news, of stories, a chance to see relatives from other villages. The atmosphere was likely calm and social, a hum of quiet conversation and negotiation. It was the economy of a community based on need and trust, and the shared understanding that everyone had something to offer. The market clearing was a nexus, a gentle weaving together of the separate threads of river communities into a larger, stronger fabric. While the stone carvers worked their magic, another artist worked with softer materials. The weaver, using a simple backstrap loom, a technology of beautiful efficiency, She would transform cotton and fibers into cloth. The loom was tied to a tree, and around her waist, the tension of her own body creating the perfect frame for her work. Her hands would move swiftly, passing the shuttle back and forth, beating the threads down with a wooden sword. The patterns she wove were geometric.
Diamonds, zigzags,
Perhaps representing mountains or water, or the scales of the sacred serpent. The cloth she created was for her family, simple loincloths.
skirts, tunics,
The act of weaving was rhythmic,
and meditative.
a quiet art practiced in the shade of the house. The soft thump, thump, thump of the beating sword was a domestic sound
A sound of creation
and of care. The resulting fabric was light,
and breathable.
perfect for the humid climate, a wearable work of art. The Olmecs may not have left libraries of books, but they spoke in a language of symbols, a quiet visual poetry carved into stone and jade. They had a deep fascination with duality, with the balance of opposites. The contrast between the heavy, enduring basalt and the delicate, precious jade, the merging of human and jaguar, the concept of the portal,
A doorway between worlds.
often represented by the open mouth of a serpent or a supernatural creature. They carved symbols that may represent the four cardinal directions, or the world tree, the axis mundi that connected the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. A common motif is the cross-shaped quatfoil, a symbol of the entrance to the otherworld. These were not random decorations. They were a complex, sophisticated way of encoding their understanding of the universe, a silent theology written in stone. To look upon these symbols is to sense a deep intellectual peace, a mind at rest within a known and ordered cosmos, where everything had its place and its meaning. What was it like to be an Olmec child? Their world was one of work and wonder. From a young age they would have helped with small tasks, grinding maize with a small mano stone, watching younger siblings, learning to weave simple patterns. But there was also time for play. They had toys, small clay whistles shaped like birds,
And figurines.
and perhaps they played a simple version of the ball game with a lighter rubber ball. They learned the stories of their people, listening to the elders tell of the Were-Jaguar.
Of the heroes who brought maize to the people. Of the meaning behind the symbols.
They learned to respect the jungle, to know which plants were useful and which were to be avoided. Their childhood was not separated from the adult world. It was a gradual, gentle integration into it,
Learning through doing.
through watching, through being part of the community's daily rhythm. The sound of children's laughter, mixing with the sounds of the village, is a universal sound of life
And continuity now and hope.
The Olmecs were among the first in the Americas to build large-scale architecture, but they built with earth. Their pyramids and platforms were not stone ziggurats, but immense constructions of clay, of basket load upon basket load of soil, carefully piled and packed into shape. The Great Pyramid at La Venta is a fluted cone, rising like a man-made mountain from the flat plain. To stand before it is to feel a sense of immense, quiet effort. It does not shout with ornate decoration. It whispers with sheer, overwhelming presence. The scale is human, yet awe-inspiring. They built processional ways and great ceremonial courtyards.
All by moving earth.
This architecture was meant to shape the landscape into a sacred space, to create a stage for the rituals that connected the people to the cosmos. Walking up the side of such a pyramid,
One would not be climbing steps.
but slowly ascending a gradual slope. A journey. As the sun begins to set, the sounds of the Olmec world change. The daytime sounds of work, the chip of stone on stone, the grinding of maize, give way to the sounds of the night. The jungle does not sleep.
It begins to sing a different song.
The cicadas begin their rhythmic, electric buzzing, a sound so constant it becomes a blanket of noise. Frogs begin to call from the riverbanks.
A deep chuckling chorus.
In the distance, a howler monkey might let out its deep, guttural roar. a sound that carries for miles. The fireflies begin to blink their silent code in the deepening gloom. For the Olmecs, these were not just noises. They were the voices of the world around them. They were the sounds of the spirits awakening. To sit in the dark and listen to this symphony is to feel both very small
and completely connected to the pulse of life.
It is a soothing.
An ancient lullaby.
The Olmecs buried their dead with care and with gifts for the journey. A common person might be buried simply beneath the floor of their own house, so they could remain with the family.
A ruler or a shaman
Would be laid to rest in a more elaborate tomb, perhaps lined with basalt columns, and accompanied by precious offerings of jade and ceramic. They were often placed in a fetal position,
as if returning to the womb of the earth,
ready to be born into the next world. The offerings placed with them, a jade mask over the face,
celts in the hands,
were tools and treasures for the afterlife. It was not a fearful end, but a transition, a return to the source from which all life came. The earth which provided the maize, the clay, the stone, would now welcome back the person. It was a complete cycle, a peaceful,
a natural
conclusion to a life.